Hello, my name is Tom with the list of interesting things. Today on the list of interesting political things is the United States election mechanism known as the Electoral College. There is, in many cases, a misconception in America about the manner in which the president is selected. The United States does not have a direct democratic election for president. Instead, it has an indirect election, in which individuals on a state-by-state basis vote for electors pledged to a certain candidate. Today, we're going to go through an overview of the Electoral College, how it works, talk about some of the arguments for and against the system, and discuss some of the potential results of the 2020 election through the lens of the Electoral College. Let's dive right in. Broadly speaking, the Electoral College is the name given to the body of individuals that meets, usually in mid-December, to determine who the president is. You may find a fine Democrat in the year 2000 going to vote for a fine candidate, say, Al Gore. But they may find when they go to the polls on Election Day that they are not voting for Gore-Lieberman. They are instead voting for electors for Gore-Lieberman. Before the election, each party pre-approves a slate of electors that are pledged to vote for a given set of candidates at the Electoral College convention in December. Usually these are members of the political elite of that party, congresspeople, former presidents, local party chairpeople, things like that. But here's the first of a whole set of quirks about the Electoral College. They don't have to. I mean to say that they don't have to vote in that fashion. They are not bound, at least on the federal level, to vote in the way that their constituents have told them to. Some states have instituted laws requiring electors to vote for their pledged candidates, but as recently as 2016, 10 so-called faithless electors voted or attempted to vote for candidates other than those that their constituents selected. This led to a rather interesting set of court cases, but we'll save that for an interesting thing for another time. In the Electoral College system, with two exceptions that we'll talk about in a minute, states cast their vote as one, meaning that the tendency of the state as a whole matters more than the tendency of voters individually. This is what's meant by the term swing state. A swing state in an American election is a state whose outcome is not clearly decided before the election occurs. These are in opposition to safe states. For example, in the 2000 election, Florida was considered a swing state because it was not immediately clear who they'd vote for at a glance. It in fact ended up being quite close. Meanwhile, West Virginia and California were safe states because it was, and is, highly unlikely that West Virginia would vote for a Democrat, or that California would vote for a Republican. If you ever hear people saying that their vote doesn't matter, a lot of the time this is what they mean. This system can seem extremely unfair to, say, liberals living in Little Rock or conservatives living in Buffalo, because the overall demographics of their state swing very hard in one direction or the other, rendering their vote more or less useless. This is one of the principal criticisms in the Electoral College, is that it can seem extremely unfair to those voters living in states with significant majorities of a certain party. Another criticism is representation. Because the number of electoral votes given to a state is not proportional by population, the system values the votes of individuals from smaller states far more than those from larger states. This is most pronounced in the difference in representation of California, the most populous state, and that of Wyoming, the least populous. Wyoming, with its population of almost 600,000 and 3 electoral votes, has a ratio of about 193,000 voters per Electoral College vote. Conversely, California, with its nearly 40 million people and 55 Electoral College votes, has around 726,000 individuals per Electoral College vote. Another way of saying this is that individuals from Wyoming have 3.76 times the voting power in presidential elections than do people in California. Now, the defense of this system is fairly obvious. The idea goes that it protects smaller states from the tyranny of the larger ones. And it certainly does that. It gives the smaller states far more power than they would have otherwise, but this has naturally garnered criticism, especially in recent years, and especially from the left. Because the overrepresented smaller states are commonly safe Republican majority, this variance in representation has caused the Electoral College to provide winners that are actually voted against by a majority of the population. This has happened 5 times in American history, 2 of which times occurred in living memory, in 2000 and just last election in 2016, whereupon Hillary Clinton lost the Electoral College by 77 points, but won the popular vote by more than 2%. This is all further complicated by differences in the Electoral College system. This is all further complicated by differences in the electoral systems between states. Most states use a winner-take-all method, but 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, divide their electoral votes proportionally. They award 2 votes for whoever gets the most votes statewide, and then they award 1 Electoral College vote to the candidate who gets the most votes in each congressional district. That's why on maps like this 538 snake graph, you see that Nebraska's at-large votes are very deeply held within Republican territory, but the Nebraska 2nd District vote tends to be controlled by the Republicans. Similarly, Maine, it's in here somewhere, Maine's at-large vote is near the center, but its 2nd District vote is down here, and its 1st District vote is up here. That's also why on the 270 to win Electoral College map, they're this fun striped color, because their votes can be distributed to multiple candidates. So that's enough hypotheticals. Now we're going to look at the 2020 map itself. This is the current set of polls, effective September 30th, and this type of map gives a chance to see the Electoral College in action. Now, before we dig into this, let's remember that we should take our polling with a grain of salt. Keep in mind that this is a summary of polls and in no way reflects any votes that have already been cast or ballots that will be cast. Alright, so we can see up at the top that the numbers of states are represented by this bar. Over on the left, we have the safe states controlled by the Democrats, like California and New York, the likely Democratic states like Colorado and New Mexico, and the lean Democratic states like Minnesota and Michigan. Over on the other side, we have the safe Republican states like Tennessee and Alabama, the likely Republican states like Kansas and Utah, and the lean Republican states, which is currently populated only by Texas. And finally, we have this other category. These are considered toss-ups, meaning they're too close to be safely considered in one direction or the other. And it's in these 3 boxes in the center that the race will be decided. These outliers, the safe states, are very unlikely to be swapped. It's not worth the money or the time for Republicans to try to flip California or for Democrats to try to flip Tennessee. It's just not feasible, at least not over the course of one election cycle. Unfortunately, this has the natural consequence of forcing candidates to fight over, and only fight over, these battleground states in the middle. This can lead to that jaded feeling that I was mentioning earlier, but it also makes for extremely close and extremely exciting races in these battleground states. Through this map and maps like it, you tend to get a sense of what a race would look like if states went in a certain direction. For example, if Joe Biden won all of the swing states, this is what it looks like. And if Donald Trump won all of the swing states, this is what it looks like. These maps tend to give you a sense of the proportion of the state's electoral vote relative to each other, as well as to give you a sense of what an election might look like under different circumstances. In the next few weeks, we'll be continuing to monitor the elections and continue to put out more informational content for people looking forward to the election on the 3rd. And we'll be going through some paths to victory using this map and maps like it in another video upcoming soon. All of our citations are below, and I encourage people to subscribe to keep up to date on our latest videos. We have included links to register to vote and to find out how to vote absentee, and I encourage everyone to do so. Until next time, be like the Electoral College. Not antiquated or frustrating or a little biased, but be complex and tenacious. And above all, be interesting. See you next time.